The San Jose Sharks may have had the best day of any team in the NHL at the NHL Draft. JD Young of Locked On Sharks is here to talk about the draft weekend and what to expect in free agency. All that and more next on the Locked On NHL Podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gil Martin here, and welcome everybody to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On Sharks, JD Young. And JD, what a great weekend for the San Jose Sharks. And it all starts with the first overall pick in the NHL Draft. I mean, how do you feel about the addition, and how soon do you expect Macklin Celebrini to be in the NHL?
As a Sharks fan, this is why you lost all those games, right? Was to put yourself in a position to draft Macklin Celebrini, who's been compared to Sidney Crosby, Jonathan Toews, like some of the greatest players, in the last kind of generation of NHL superstars. And it feels great, Gil. It's just a great knowing that the Sharks they've been doing a great job of adding pieces. You know, you look at William Macklin, who had a really positive first year. They get Will Smith last year. You have prospects like Quentin Musty, Casper Halton. But Celebrini is like that cornerstone franchise piece where it's almost like a tipping point where, okay, we've gotten Celebrini. We have like the guy that we can kind of build around here and kind of go from here. And now it's how do you build around Celebrini? And the Sharks have a lot of huge pieces. And I would be shocked if Celebrini is not. Celebrini's gonna be in the NHL next year. It's going to happen. The Sharks have done the big process now is how do you put him in the best position by, kind of surrounding him with talent. But Celebrini is just too good to go back in the NCAA. He would go back, probably win another Hobie Baker Award, but very much big fish in a small pond, and he needs to be playing NHL games as he can kind of continue his development and progression. But for Sharks fans, though, I know Bedard is seen as more of a generational prospect, but with Celebrini, you're getting a more well-rounded player who can play a full 200-foot game. He's good in his defensive zone. And the great thing about Celebrini is whatever you need him to do, the kid's going to do it. Like if you need him to be a good, play well in the defensive zone, he can do that. If you need him to be a passer and you surround him with scoring wingers, if you need him to be the main scoring threat, he can do that. You need him to transport the puck, whatever you need to do. Celebrini is just like, cool, I can do that. So great. And the kid just wants to work. He actually cut his trip short in Vegas so he could go home, go to the Bay Area and get a skating on Sunday to get ready for development camp. Like this kid, he's going to change the Sharks franchise here.
Now, you were at the draft and you got to interview him as part of a scrum. What impressed you most about him?
For a kid who just turned 18 like 2 weeks ago, super polished, which you would expect, right? His dad working for the Golden State Warriors. He's been hanging around professional athletes his entire life. Draymond Green, Steph Curry, these guys have been in his life, and he's been around professional athletes, and he's known that like this is kind of everything's leading up to this moment. But super polished kid. He has future captain material written all over him. I would be willing to bet dollars to donuts that he will wear the C for the Sharks at some point. It's going to be just a matter of when, not if, for him. But yeah, just super polished, super, just kind of knows what was expected of him and kind of knows that what the weight of expectations are for him and is willing to kind of do whatever it takes to fulfill those expectations. So this kid is great support system around him with his family and his friends. Definitely the weight of an entire franchise on him, but he seems like he's ready to take on the challenge.
Now, that was not the only pick the Sharks had in the first round, and they made some very good choices in the second and later rounds as well. Talk to me a little bit about the other quote-unquote picks that the Sharks made over the weekend.
So, yeah, the Sharks, before the draft, they moved up from 14, which they got from the Penguins as part of the Erik Karlsson deal, up to 11. They swapped him with the Buffalo Sabres, where they were able to get Sam Dickinson. I asked Mike Grier if he was surprised to see Dickinson there, and he said, yeah, a little bit. Dickinson is a 6'3" left-handed shot playing for the London Knights in the OHL, but smooth skater, well-rounded, very physical, kind of whatever you need him to do. Needs to work on his consistency a little bit. I think there's a little bit more of his offensive game that can grow, especially on London, London is just a good team every year. But for the Sharks, who I didn't expect them. I know the Sharks, again, didn't expect Dickinson to be there. You basically got your 1C and your first pair of defensemen in one draft, so it feels like a really nice win there. Sharks added some other guys like Igor Chernovsky, who was projected to be a first-round pick, but fell to the beginning of the second round. Kind of big Russian power forward guy who can kind of do a little bit of everything. Production wasn't there in the KHL, but he kind of showed a lot just the way he was playing, especially in bottom 6 minutes. Can play a physical game, can play kind of a more finesse game, is really able to kind of change his game to the surroundings, and took some swings on defensemen, especially in the later rounds, who I think were going to really kind of help fill out the prospect core or prospect pipeline. Mike Grier loves them big boys, 6'3", 6'4" type of guys who play physical. They got some stuff that they need to work on, but Grier, I think, came away. You have to give Mike Grier an A+ after the weekend he had. And again, when you get Macklin Celebrini, but the other moves he made and the pieces he added, it feels like the Sharks are real. You could argue the Sharks have the best, if not one of the best prospect pools in the entire NHL right now.
Now, free agency starts Monday at noon Eastern time. The Sharks need to get to the floor of the salary cap still. So what do you expect from San Jose once free agency gets underway?
So I think Grier is going to continue to be smart, right? He's come out and said that they don't expect any massive long-term commitments, right? Because when you do draft your Celebrinis and your Will Smiths and your Eklunds, you have to pay them at some point, and he's working in that window right now to try to add pieces that will help these guys kind of accelerate their development, but then come off the books and you have to start kind of paying them. So he said he's looking for the kind of 1 to 4 year window on contracts, but he did mention scoring is something the Sharks really do need. They've added some kind of bottom 6 guys, and with the Barclay Goodrow, trading for Ty Dellandrea, getting Carl Grundstrom from the LA Kings, but they need some more just scoring and some more top 6 pieces to play with Macklin Celebrini and to play with Will Smith and to play with Eklund. So I expect him to be pretty aggressive there. So maybe it's a shorter term, but higher AAV type of contract that the Sharks, with their flexibility right now, can offer. And I wouldn't be surprised if they look to add another puck-moving defenseman on the right side. They just got Jake Wallman in a kind of a coup from the Red Wings, getting Jake Wallman and a second-round pick just to take him off their books. But I would expect them to look to add another puck-moving right-handed shot defenseman to kind of help Wallman out here and just give themselves a little bit more flexibility on the blue line.
Describe the difference to me right now in the mood surrounding this franchise today versus a week ago.
I mean, Sharks fans are the Sharks fans are just so excited right now. You keep the future's teal. That's been kind of the Sharks motto here. And I think too, just even at the draft, right, having Joe Thornton, who the best player in Sharks history, having just basically handing the franchise off to Macklin Celebrini. And we as Sharks fans, we know it's still going to be a long process, right? We know this thing isn't going to turn around tomorrow, but this team is coming, and if Will Smith turns out to be anywhere half as good as we expect him to be, Eklund continues his progression, Dickinson is as good as we think he's going to be, and Macklin Celebrini is the guy. this team is going to be a massive threat in the West and here in a few years. And, we've done the hard part, and now it's, can you build around these guys? But yeah, the Sharks fans are just in Vegas. I saw so many Sharks jerseys, even, at the draft. Anytime Celebrini was even mentioned or like shown on the screen, Sharks fans were just going crazy. Yes, the franchise, it's been a long 5 years since their last playoff run, and it feels like we can start to see when the tank is going to be full and exciting again here soon. So,
all right. Well, JD, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Of course, you can find the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. You can watch on YouTube as well. You can follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. You can follow me on Twitter at MyFryhole.
All right, JD, thanks so much. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, buddy.
Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Check out the odds on your favorite baseball team. Maybe take a look at some football futures, or use your knowledge of hockey to find some great bets on FanDuel. Head on over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball.